In the last video, I talked about how you don't need to learn hundreds of AWS cloud services in order to build real applications. The same logic applies for Google Cloud. Compute is compute, storage is storage, and networking fundamentals don't magically change overnight. What changes is how each cloud implements those ideas. So, personal story. I spent years working with AWS services, then I had to prepare for GCP's interviews in just 1 week. I honestly felt a little doomed because it took me a lot of time to pick up AWS services and now the transition. That's when I realized something important. Just like AWS, trying to memorize GCP services won't really work. So instead of learning everything, I focused only on learning selected services that mattered the most for my role, as well as building real applications. This really helped me to focus on topics and services that would be actually asked during my interviews. So this video is all about how you can do the same. I've broken down Google Cloud Services into 7 buckets, 7 areas that covers almost everything that you need to know. From the absolute basics, including coding and networking knowledge, to even AI and ML workloads. And in the end, I will be sharing 3 portfolio projects that you can build to double down on your knowledge, because the goal here is to learn by building. In addition to that, for every bucket, you need to build something every week. I've shared that during the video, as well as I have written down a detailed guide that you will get in the description below. And bonus, I've also shared 3 free certification paths that you can take in order to boost your resume. So keep watching till the end. Alright, let's get started. Bucket 1. So here are your day 1 actions. Number 1, create your Google Cloud account. Before we touch any of the services, we need to set up Google Cloud account properly. This is different from AWS, so pay attention to the setup flow. Go to cloud.google.com, sign up with your Google account, and you will get $300 as free credits for 90 days. That's basically your learning budget. Then the first service, or I should say the component within Google Cloud environment, is projects and organizations. Let's first understand how GCP organizes resources. Organizations are the top level containers. It's typically created when you sign up using Google Workspace or Cloud Identity account. For individual learners, you won't need this yet. But note, when you'll start a role where Google Cloud is the environment, you'll come across this very often. Now here in Google Cloud, everything lives inside a project, not accounts. VMs, databases, storage, everything belongs to a project. When you create your account, Google gives you some default name. You can rename it to something like GCP Learning. Now, while you are learning, keep it very simple. Keep one project for experiments, another project for real apps and demos. And note, whenever you delete a project, everything goes with it. So it helps you with cleaning up and destroying resources as well. Note, when you're working with enterprises, you need to be careful here. It will have some consequences. Next, enable billing. This is required even for free tier services. So make sure you link billing to your project and set a budget alert, maybe $20 or $30, so you don't get surprised later. And third thing that you need to do within this bucket is using Cloud Shell. It's a built-in terminal within your browser with everything pre-installed, so no local setup needed. Click the terminal icon in the top right of the console and boom, you have got CLI, kubectl, Terraform, everything. I love this piece. So another key thing to note here is you can access Google Cloud environments through console, through CLIs, through SDKs, through APIs, Cloud Shell, and even mobile apps. So going back to Cloud Shell, this terminal also comes with Gemini Code Assist. You need to enable a few APIs first specific to this project, and then you can use Gemini to write a command, fix a syntax, write a full Terraform template. It's like having a cloud expert sitting right next to you. For learning, Cloud Shell is more than enough. That's it. Setting up account, organization, projects, billing, Cloud Shell. Now you're ready to build. Within the foundations bucket, we also have security. So now you should focus on IAM, which is Identity and Access Management. Note, the names are same. It's basically controlling who can do what in your project. Same thing. You need to create a VM, IAM. Create a bucket, IAM. Create a database, you need IAM permissions. So how it works for GCP? The first element here is members, which are basically users, service accounts, and groups. The number 2 element here is roles, which is basically the bundles of permissions that you assign to the members. And then the number 3 element is permissions itself, basically the individual actions. So you give permissions to roles and then you assign roles to members. That's it. There are 3 role types within GCP that you need to focus on. Basic roles like owners or editors, predefined roles like storage viewer, and then there are custom roles. These are pretty advanced, used only when needed. Then the other element is service accounts. These are identities for applications and not for people. You use them when a VM needs access to cloud storage, a cloud run function is talking to a database, basically service to service communications. The other security component is secret manager. So the most important security practice is to never hard code secrets. That's it. And this is why secret manager service exists. You store API keys, database passwords, certificates, and other credentials. And your code or your application fetches these secrets during runtime. So it keeps it secure. Anything that's sensitive goes to secret manager. So hands-on exercise for this bucket. Create a project and enable billing. Set a budget alert. Use Cloud Shell. Enable Gemini Code Assist for Cloud Shell. And number 5 is go look into the IAM console and get familiar with all these elements, members, service accounts, roles, permissions. Once you can do all these things comfortably, move to bucket 2. Now this bucket is all about compute and containers, our favorite topic. As you all know, every organization needs compute. Application run kahan karenge nahi to? And now with AI models becoming the new standard, we need accelerated compute like GPUs and TPUs. Google Cloud has similar compute services like AWS, but they have some unique advantages as well, specifically for containers and AI workloads. So our number 1 service is Compute Engine. It's also known as GCE, Google Compute Engine. It's a virtual machine in the cloud, so GCP's version of EC2 instance. Why you need it? Sometimes your application needs servers that needs to run all the time. So all the use cases for traditional applications, databases that cannot go serverless. So how it works? Pick your machine type, choose your operating system, set up all the other settings like region, zones, and launch. GCP also gives you a global VPC. So by default, this compute engine or instance become a part of the default VPC. Once that's done, you launch your VM and it's ready in few minutes. Again, you can spin up this GCE instance using console, CLI, within Cloud Shell, Terraform, SDKs. These are the common channels. Google also offers GPUs and TPUs, so you can go check into the compute types as well. Now, what's the coding requirement for this particular service? So if you know Bash scripting, that should be enough for startup scripts. And you should be familiar with Linux commands for SSH access. Our number 2 service is Cloud Run Functions. It's basically you run code without managing servers. Since there are no servers, it auto scales by itself and you pay only for execution time. So a simple workflow of Cloud Run Functions would be write a function using Python, Node.js, Java, Go. Then set up a trigger, maybe an HTTP request, a cloud storage event, PubSub message. I'll tell you what PubSub is in a few minutes. And done. Whenever there is a trigger, the function would be called and it would execute by itself. Now there is a coding requirement for this particular service. You need to be familiar with one programming language and be comfortable writing functions. A very realistic example of using Cloud Run Functions would be whenever a user uploads an image to cloud storage, which is the object storage of GCP. Because of that upload operation, the function gets triggered and it resizes the image. That's the part the function is doing. It's loading the image and then running some operation to resize it. And then the function would store it back to storage. That's it. You did not provision any servers for it. You just wrote a function and added a trigger. Our next service is Google Kubernetes Engine. It's basically the managed Kubernetes service. And this is where Google shines. It gives you 2 modes of operating with Kubernetes. One is this GKE standard and the other one is GKE autopilot. Both have some great benefits. Standards let you have more control over your clusters. With autopilot, Google manages most of the part. You just specify a few CPU memory requirements and it would orchestrate containers using Kubernetes for you. Now, the operation part is simple. You create a cluster. Within the cluster, you create a node pool. You select certain instance types and then you deploy your containerized apps within that environment. So you create the deployment services and pods within the environment. Now, part of the managed services that Google manages the control plane for Kubernetes. It also manages auto scaling, auto repair, and all that stuff. So with coding requirement, you must be familiar with writing Docker file. Also be very familiar with Kubernetes concepts that I've told you 1,000 times. And also be YAML literate. basically be able to write YAML files. Again, AI can do a lot of things for you, but be familiar with the manifest files. Our next service within Compute Bucket is Cloud Run. These are basically serverless containers and very unique to GCP. Take any containerized app, basically take any Docker file and deploy it to Cloud Run. It can scale to 0 and scale up to as many containers as you want. And you pay only for what you use. So there's no Kubernetes complexity here. A lot of enterprises prefer Cloud Run if they want to deploy fast or test some features. So the key steps here would be to package your app in a container, push it to an artifact registry, and then deploy to Cloud Run. That's it. So Cloud Run brings a bit of flexibility here. It's easier than Kubernetes, and then it helps you run containers. Now our last service within this bucket is App Engine. It's a platform as a service. It's a fully managed platform, which means zero infrastructure management. Just deploy your code. Google handles the rest. So you basically write your app with one of the languages like Python, Go, Java, and you deploy with one command. And Google handles scaling, load balancing, and all those things. Now, when to use App Engine? It's when you want to focus only on code development and no infrastructure management. Now, that's it for compute. Now, let's move into our bucket 3, which is storage and databases. Before we jump into the services, there are 4 storage types that you should be familiar with. Number 1 is object storage. So media files like images, videos, text files all goes in it, and you get the unlimited scale. Number 2 is block storage. It's a direct attached storage like hard drives. Number 3 is file storage. It's a shared network file system. Basically, many servers can access the same files in one location. Number 4 is databases for structured and unstructured data. Now let's see how Google Cloud implements each. Our first storage type, object storage, is implemented as cloud storage. It's basically GCP's version of S3. It has unlimited object storage. Key thing to note about cloud storage is that it's pretty reliable. 11 nines of durability. And again, unlimited and globally accessible. So steps are simple. You create a bucket, upload files, and set some permissions using IAM. You can also version files. So if there are any changes in the previous and newer version of file, you can track that. You can also set up lifecycle rules to transfer storage from hot to cold storage. Interview topic. It's a very important interview topic. It saves a lot of cost. And then also you can use to trigger events. There are 4 storage classes within cloud storage that you must read about. They are standard, nearline, cold line, archive. Go read about the difference. Number 2 is block storage, which is implemented as persistent disk. It's basically a storage for your compute VMs. Every virtual machine needs a storage. Your operating system boots from a persistent disk. Your application data lives there. So you create a disk attached to a VM. It acts like a hard drive. You can also take snapshots, resize it, and change types on the go. So snapshots is an important concept here. So during outages, snapshots are very important in order to bring the data back again. Persistent disk also has 4 types. It has standard, balanced, SSD, and extreme. Now our third storage is file store. It's the managed NFS-based file storage that multiple VMs can access. So you basically create a file store instance and you mount it on VMs, compute engine resources. Best part, all the servers can see the same files. So if one writes over it, other can read it. Next storage type is relational databases, which is Cloud SQL by Google. It's a managed MySQL, PostgreSQL, and SQL server. You can use this when you need a relational database, basically to store your structured data and write SQL queries on it. Few topics to read around Cloud SQL is high availability, read replicas, automatic backups. These come a lot during interviews around high availability and reliability scenarios. Our next database type is Cloud Spanner. It's a globally distributed relational database. There's often a question asked, which is the difference between Spanner and Cloud SQL. So one thing about Cloud Spanner here is it's very unique to Google. It's basically a relational database that scales horizontally and globally. So it has a very strong consistency. So when do you use Spanner over Cloud SQL? It's when you need global scale and relational guarantees, and mostly used for financial apps and applications which are basically everywhere, like Google search. Then our next storage type is NoSQL. And the Google's implementation is Firestore. It's a serverless document database. So you store documents in collections, you can query them, and the data syncs in real time to clients. Very good for mobile apps, real-time applications, serverless architectures. Now, Google also has one of the best data warehouse for analytics. Yes, I'm talking about BigQuery. It's the crown jewel of data. Number one, it's serverless and can help you analyze petabytes of data using SQL. And you only pay for queries. Plus, there is an AI integration, so you can query using natural language as well. So basically load your data, write queries, and get results. Now the next service is Bigtable. It's very well known for Google search. It's a NoSQL wide column database for massive scale. Yes, scale like Google search. It's used for IoT, time series, and analytical data. Then we also have Memory Store, that's an additional service. It's a managed Redis and Memcache for caching. Now our bucket 4 is networking and content delivery. Networking on GCP is one of Google's strengths. Our first service here is Virtual Private Cloud, aka VPC. Basically, you own a private network within Google Cloud, used for security, isolation, and control over traffic. So one unique part of Google's VPC is it's global, whereas in AWS they are more regional. Here it's across all the regions. So you have one centralized VPC and then you can create subnets for specific regions. So what do you need to know within networking here? How to create subnets, how to set up firewall rules. Firewalls are basically like security groups. So you can control the incoming and outgoing traffic using it. And then also how to set up routes. There's an amazing Google Cloud Skill Boost lab that helps you understand the whole networking landscape. In that particular lab, you create a VPC using Cloud Shell. Check this link, also added in the description below. Our next component is Cloud Load Balancing. It helps you distribute traffic across instances. Similar to VPC, Google's load balancing is also global. There's one Anycast IP, which helps in routing traffic to the nearest healthy backend. There are majorly 3 types of load balancers that you need to be aware of. HTTP load balancing for web traffic, TCP SSL load balancing for non-HTTP traffic, and then internal load balancing. This is basically for traffic within your VPC. Our next component is Cloud CDN. It's content delivery network which helps you cache your content at edge locations worldwide. It basically helps with fast access for global users. So how it works? You can enable Cloud CDN on your load balancer and your content automatically caches on Google's edge locations. The other networking component is Cloud DNS. It's basically the DNS service for your domains. Every app needs DNS. This is how your domain points to services. How it works within Google, you create a DNS zone, add records, and point it to your resources, basically your backend targets. Another important component here which is a mix of network and security. We are talking about Cloud Armor. This is used for DDoS, aka Distributed Denial of Service protection. It acts as your web application firewall. So just imagine there's an automated bot that's constantly sending requests to your application and then overloading it so that other users cannot access it. Cloud Armor comes into picture and blocks those requests. These are the main components, but there are other networking fundamentals that you need. You need to understand IP addresses and CIDR blocks. Basically, you can use calculator to find the ranges. Then second is firewall rules. We did not go through it in detail, but you need to understand about ingress, basically what can reach your resources. Then there is egress, what your resource can reach to. One of the things you also need to see is like where there is default deny and where you need to explicitly allow. And then you also need to understand routes, how traffic flows within your network. So don't be scared. You don't need a networking degree here. Just understand these blocks one by one and then you'll be able to connect the dots. Our number 5th bucket is DevOps and automation. It's a whole bucket. So this is where you stop clicking on the console and start automating things and be the cool DevOps person. So you can use Terraform for GCP to provision resources using a declarative format. It works great with GCP environments. There are separate providers and different configurations that you can find on Terraform documentation. And the process is similar. You write Terraform configuration, you get familiar with Terraform commands, init, create, apply, destroy, and as a result the infrastructure gets created without you going to the console. Other DevOps service within Google Cloud Platform is Cloud Build. It's a CI/CD service for building and deploying. So it automates your build and deployment pipeline basically. So what you do here with Cloud Build is you define build stages within a YAML file, and then you add a trigger such as GitHub commit. What Cloud Build does here, it pulls the source code, it builds it, basically it compiles the code and create an artifact. And as the stages are defined, the next stage could be deployment. So it pushes it to an artifact registry. Depending on how the next stages are, there could be some integration test that you can run. And the next step is deployment to the backend targets. Could be a Cloud Run instance, could be a compute engine resource, or a GKE cluster. Next DevOps component is Cloud Source Repositories. It's a private Git repository on GCP. And it's integrated with Google Cloud, so you have access to other services. In this, you create a repo, push code, and then integrate it with Cloud Build. Then the other important DevOps component is Artifact Registry. Here you store your container, images, and artifacts. So when using GKE or Cloud Run, your images has to live somewhere. This is where. It's like Docker but private to GCP. Another service is PubSub. This is a very crucial service for event-driven architectures. It's a messaging service, and it is very crucial for asynchronous processing or decoupled services. If you don't know what all these are, go read the doc below. So asynchronous processing is that your task can run on the background without breaking the main flow. So how it works? It's very powerful for decoupled services. Basically, you publish messages to a topic, and then subscribers who have subscribed to that topic receives them. Best part, it scales automatically, so you don't have to manage the queue. Very important for event-driven architectures, microservices communication, and data ingestion pipelines. There are other services like Cloud Tasks and Cloud Scheduler. A high-level understanding of these services are okay. Let's jump into our next bucket. This is the AI and machine learning bucket. The first service within this bucket is Vertex AI. It's a unified ML platform within Google Cloud. You can train custom models, you can fine-tune models, you can deploy them, you can also manage ML workflows. So all the MLOps activities you want to do, you can do it with Vertex AI. So Vertex AI is like a whole platform, so there are a bunch of other services within it. I like to call it services because it's easier like that. But for example, you can use notebooks within the platform to develop models. You can also train on Vertex AI. So you don't have to spin up GKE clusters and set up the whole compute infrastructure to train your models. Vertex AI manages that for you. And once you have also trained your models, you can deploy to endpoints. Other key things, you can monitor and manage your models. If there are any drifts detected, it can help you manage the versions as well. For this service, you need to be familiar with coding a little bit. You can use Python, R, and be familiar to frameworks as well like PyTorch, TensorFlow. A reality check for DevOps people here, you don't go deep into this particular bucket. I would strongly suggest to be familiar with it. You can try to understand how models are deployed and how endpoints are managed. Like, it won't hurt you, and it's actually good right now. Now within Vertex AI, there is Vertex AI search and conversation as well. Here you get pre-trained models for search and chatbots application. These are all enterprise grade generative AI applications. So it helps you building a whole search platform or even integrate a chatbot within another application without training new models. So you can access it via APIs or even deploy it through the UI. Now within this bucket, we also have Cloud Vision API. This is an image analysis API, helps you detect object, text, images, landmarks in images. So it's pre-trained, again, just call the API. The next one is Cloud Natural Language API. It's basically the natural language processing service for text analysis, used heavily with sentiment analysis, entity extraction, and content classification. The next one is Document AI. You can extract structured data from your documents. Just think of it like if you take a picture of your license and then you upload it to Document AI, or you call the API with that image, it can extract all that information into a structured format. A lot of these government and enterprises use it for extracting information from like these thousands or millions of forms. Then there is speech to text and text to speech APIs. Again, you call the APIs, it converts from text to audio and audio to text. They also have translation API. Basically call this API to translate text between languages. And then we have Gemini API, our most popular one. It's the Google's latest foundation model for multimodal AI. It handles text, images, videos, code, and you basically call the API with your prompt and context, and you get the AI generated responses. So there's a lot of focus into Gemini APIs. A lot of companies are calling these APIs to build AI features into their application. And these applications could be anything like chatbots, content generation, video generation, and other analysis work. So within this bucket, there are a bunch of APIs, and then there is Vertex here as the main ML platform. You can use Gemini APIs for general AI features. Then there is specialized APIs like Vision, NLPs, Document AI. They are for specific tasks. Let's go into our last bucket. This is monitoring and cost. So this is what a lot of companies are looking into. Starting with cloud monitoring, as the name suggests, it's a monitoring service within GCP. Within the service, you have metrics that tracks performance, logs that captures events. You can set up alerts like I asked you to do it in bucket 1. It also has dashboards that can help you visualize everything that's going within your environment. So what you'll use the most here? Metrics, which is basically the CPU, memory, disk space, request, logs, application logs, system logs, uptime checks. You basically check your endpoints availability, and alerting. Get notified when thresholds are breached. The next service is cloud logging. Centralized logging for all GCP services. All your logs in one place. You search them, you analyze them, you can run. There's AI piece into it as well. You can write a prompt asking to look into the logs to find some errors. It'll help you do it. Another one is cloud tracing. It's a distributed tracing services for microservices. Next is Cloud Profiler. This one is unique. It helps with continuous profiling of your application. Now, why it is useful? So it helps you find performance bottlenecks within your code. Here, basically, you add a profiling agent and then it continuously profiles your app. It checks for CPU, checks for memory usage, and advise you the next steps. The next is cost management. GCP also offers this cost management service. It will help you understand the cost landscape of your environments. So you can get cloud billing reports. You can set budgets and alerts. You can look into committed use discounts. Basically, you can buy some compute and save money on predefined workloads. And there are other different discount types as well. Just familiarity is okay. That's pretty much it. And before we move into the portfolio projects, there are advanced security services also that you should be aware of. One is the Security Command Center. It's basically a risk management solution within GCP, which helps you prevent, detect, and respond to security events. Then there is also Mandiant, which is used for threat intelligence. I would suggest you to read about it a little bit. Now let's jump into 3 portfolio projects that you can build in order to just validate these skills. But before building any projects, do this one thing. Align yourself to a career role and then pick projects. The reason I'm saying this is because you'll save some time here. Pick only projects that's relevant to your career path. And this role could be anything. It could be cloud engineer, data engineer, or AI/ML focused. If you're still confused of your career path, go to this link and select learning path from the drop down. You'll get some clarity on role expectations and who does what. Now for the projects, many things you can do for free, or you can use the Google Cloud free credits. Now here are 3 labs/projects worth doing. Number 1 is deploying Kubernetes applications on Google Cloud. What you'll do here is you'll deploy a containerized application to GKE, configure load balancer, and manage deployments. This will help you get the foundation of running production apps on Kubernetes. Now this is available through Google Cloud Skill Boost, and there's a way for you to get free credits. I've shared it in the guide below. The next project is deploying serverless applications on Google Cloud. Now here you will build and deploy containerized applications again without managing servers. So you will be using Cloud Run here, and you'll understand the whole event-driven architecture as well. Again, this is available through Google Cloud Skill Boost. Lab details added below. Now our third project is deploying an e-commerce application, but this is a little advanced project. You'll deploy a full microservices-based application. What that means is you'll use Kubernetes, then you'll use Service Mesh, then you'll use Observability Stack. It's like a very realistic architecture. So go into this once you're done with the first 2 labs. Now, all the resources are in the guide below. Now to access the Skills Boost lab, you need to join the Google Cloud Innovators program. It'll help you get 35 free credits every month. I've shared the detailed steps below in the guide. Now, apart from learning these services, I would highly recommend for you to join communities. There's a student community within Google Cloud which you can join. And what helps here is at times you get free certification vouchers, you get free labs, you get a lot of learning opportunities. All right, let's wrap up. 7 buckets that should be your focus in order to be Google Cloud literate. Key advice: don't just watch videos, build things, break them, and fix them. That's how you will learn any cloud platform. If this was helpful, let me know in the comments below. And if you want me to cover the Azure specific cloud roadmap as well, comment Azure and I'll work on it. See you in the next one.